I am going to share because we're moving into the second hour, the second round and that is the why. So, why is it important right now to come together and bring change based on our collective wisdom? And we have three very wise speakers here. So, we're going to start with Mary Jane, corporate advisor, facilitator, advisor. Main focus area of our company, Creating Waves, are stress hardiness, resilience, emotional agility, and DEI. She's a thought leader and teacher of the Wise Move Society, the founder of In Leadership, member of the Female Way of Change Circle of Wisdom, and teacher. Her values and strengths are dependable, perseverance, honest, resilience, of course, humor, love of learning, curiosity, equality, and gratitude. Mary Jane is going to talk about changing the age paradigm. So, Mary Jane, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. So when Ingan asked me to do this, she said, I want you to set the stage, So that's really where what I'm going to share with you now in the next few minutes is where I'm coming from. So some of you will know I'm turning 71 next month, all right? And I'm sharing this because, and I love to share about my age, especially with participants in workshops, trainings that I facilitate. They're always younger and sometimes much younger. And so often when people hear my age, they look surprised. Some even say, you don't look like you're in your 70s. And then I have to wonder, of course, being in my 70s, what is it supposed to look like? But again, it's a stereotypical thinking that we all succumb to. And that's the reason why I share my age. I want people to stop and think. I really want them to think about the old paradigm of what aging has meant, the story slowing down, fading away, stepping aside. And aging has been seen actually primarily as a decline, a period of winding down. We're past our prime, our due date. But here I am. I mean, yeah, and I'm still training, facilitating, presenting. I do the work I love. I think with lots of energy, curiosity. Robert, I heard you mention that. And I like to think a sense of humor. And I plan to keep going until I can't. I mean, that's really how much I love what I do. All right. So this paradigm around age, it is shifting. We're living longer, more active lives. And I will say, you hear often about longer and healthier. The jury's out on that. We don't seem to have added on many more years of healthier life. So we do need to do something about that. But even though we're living longer and we're living more active lives, for many, the mindset about aging just hasn't kept up. It's still looking at the lens of aging through the past and not with the reality of the present and the future. So if you think about the old paradigm, life was imagined in 3 stages. You learn, you work, and then you retire, all right? And it's the model that was with the life expectancy, maybe 65, 70. Many of us are living 20 or 30 years longer than that. So that old model just doesn't fit anymore. And yet workplaces, policies, even our own beliefs, personal beliefs about aging, we still cling to the idea that aging equals decline. Older workers face age discrimination. They're perceived as being less adaptable, less tech savvy. We're blocking opportunities for younger workers. I mean, these are all things that come up when talking about age, older age in the workplace. And I shared with somebody this morning at a networking event, that in the past year, I've learned 3 different AI tools. So where does this stereotypical thinking come from? And the other thing that I found in the research that I did, and of course, and it's just, and even the experience that I've had in the last few years on talking about this topic is that organizations don't rarely put programs in place to fully integrate older workers into the talent system. And so we're seen as a burden and not as an asset. Now, with the new paradigm, and I think we are moving towards that, we're seeing much more articles, Forbes, etc., talking about multi-stage life. And so instead of this straight line, probably down, I guess, it's more the chapters of our lives that we can keep rewriting, learning, working, reinventing ourselves, starting something new. And that's something that Wise Move Society that we're really big on in promoting. We make up a large share of consumer spending, and I think they're estimating the market is in the trillions. So we're not a generation to be just shoved to the side. And so it's more of a chance for what kind of potential do we have? We've got more years, and that means more chances to grow, to create, contribute into the world. Intergenerational collaboration, because we were talking about that as well. We bring resilience, perspective, and wisdom when the younger generation will bring the digital fluency for sure, fresh ideas. So together we're stronger. And the other thing that it brings, this new paradigm, is that we can grow at every stage. It's not about the winding down. It's about, I saw the expression shifting gears. All right. As we age, we want more meaning in what we're doing. We want to leave that legacy. We want to contribute. And Donna, I see you nodding, and Clara, I saw you too. And that really, I think, resonates with what many of us are about. So this shift really challenges the shift in thinking. It really challenges ageism, and it's still, though, so prevalent in workplaces and society. Let organizations see us now as being a renewable resource, that we actually can contribute for a lot longer than what they're expecting. And and I did a deep dive. At first, I was going to present you all with some data on the statistics, etc. But I thought, no, I'm going to take a different twist to this. My invitation to everyone here, but also who's going to watch this recording, what if we stop seeing age as a countdown and start seeing it as expansion? Instead of asking, how old are you? What if we ask a question like, what stage are you in right now? What's next for you? Seeing age as possibility, the multiplier of possibility. So we need this mindset shift. When I was saying that earlier, I thought this is going to be a tongue twister. But we do need this mindset shift for all of society, and towards ourselves as well. So the next time you catch yourself thinking, I'm too old for this, or they're too young for that, ask the question, what strengths does that person bring in this stage of life? Because when we update this old age paradigm, we're not just adding years to life, but we're adding life and possibility to our years. Yes. And that's what I want to live for. So hopefully some food for thought for everyone.
Absolutely, Mary Jane. Add some life to your years. I love that. You gave some great. It's not a countdown, but it's a suspension. What stage are you in? That's absolutely, and see it as a possibility. For collaboration and to do things together. Absolutely. Thank you very much. And we will be talking about it in the breakout rooms later. We are going to the next speaker. So I'm going to share my screen again. And I really must ask all the speakers to bear in mind that we have 5 to 7 minutes. So if you take extra time, it goes off the time in the breakout rooms. So the next speaker is Pamela Thompson, leadership and transition coach, consultant, 3 times #1 best-selling author, lived and worked on 5 continents, including some conflict zones, honorary ambassador of Female Wave of Change, and life is an adventure to be lived to the fullest. That are her words. And I read several books of her, and it's really always very impressive. So, writing a book is leaving a legacy. So, Pam, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Ingun. So much to think about, so much to move forward with. I had the opportunity to live and work in Afghanistan for 13 months from October 2010 to November 2011, and also for a shorter mission in 2015. It was indeed life-changing. I vividly recall the day when I received an email offering me the opportunity to throw my hat into the ring for one of 3 positions in Afghanistan. One of them had my name written all over it. It was Senior Technical Advisor, Strategic Planning and Performance Measurement. I shared my excitement and my interest in pursuing this with my husband, who was 100% supportive. So within a week, I threw my hat into the ring. Within a couple of weeks, I was part of the interview process. And about a month later, I was on the ground in Afghanistan, having signed a 9-month contract that later got extended to 13. Why did I write Truths and Contradictions, Life-Changing Experiences in Afghanistan in 2024 and release it earlier this year? Well, I kept in touch with a number of the women and men I'd worked with in Afghanistan over the years. And when the Taliban took the country in August of 2021, I felt called to support as many as possible in any way I could. A number reached out and I wrote them letters of recommendation. The ones who were eligible for Canada, I was able to support more strongly. One man I found out had been targeted by the Taliban, and I was able through the support of family and friends to raise money for he and 23 of his extended family to come to Canada. And also there were 3 sisters too I worked with very closely. So all of these people have contributed their stories, their wisdom, their experiences to my life. Initially, I wasn't sure about how I was going to write about Afghanistan. I just felt really called to do it. Yet I was very clear on my why. And it was to dispel myths about Afghans, Afghanistan, and Islam, because Lord knows there are many, and also to shine the light on the incredible courage and resilience of the Afghan people. Now, I thought it'd be interesting to interview some of these people when you're working in such an intense situation that we were. You don't really have time to talk about a lot of personal stuff. So I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to interview some of the women and men I'd worked with and learn about their experiences. What was it like to grow up in Afghanistan and be there during key historic events like the Russian invasion and the 2 Taliban takeovers? So I did that. So the first part of the book is funny and scary stories about what it's like to live and work in a war zone. And the second half is based on those interviews with Afghan men and women. I also wanted readers to understand the history because there's so much we can learn from history. Most of the time we don't learn, but there's so much we can learn from history. So there is a piece that outlines on the key timeline for Afghanistan and the different phases of development and losses and gains of women's rights, since like the 1700s. I also, as I mentioned before about dispelling myths, I have a section on truths and contradictions where I share some myths or some truths and let the reader decide what they think is a myth or a truth and what they think is a contradiction. In addition, I wanted to really talk about the real plight of women and girls in Afghanistan, but also to share how we at different levels in government and ourselves can really support women and girls in Afghanistan. So I share a number of organizations, including one called Right to Learn Afghanistan. And they're a Canadian nonprofit who've been supporting the education of women and girls in Afghanistan since 1996, and they are still doing it in spite of the recent cutting of the internet by the Taliban. Now, my larger mission that I don't share with everyone is to help build peace and understanding in the world. And so I wanted the book to end on a positive note related to this higher mission that I have. So I'd like to share with you and leave you with my vision of a life free of war and conflict. I see a world free of war and violence, one where all cultures and religions, excuse me, are accepted, where all people are respected and treated with respect, where people live together in communities that model the values of contribution, collaboration, caring, and connection, where people are truly connected with who they are and the gifts they have to share, where creativity is valued and everyone knows how to tap into it and express their creative side, where people have the courage to reach out for support when they need it. I see a world where people trust their bodies, value their own wisdom, and know how to say no. One that believes in the power of groups and synergy, that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. A world where women and men stand together as partners. I believe each one of us has a role to play, whether it be big or small, to move toward a world of peace and understanding. Thanks.
Wow. Wise words again. Thank you, Pam, so much. And I'm also going to share my heart because it was really wonderful. And I love to see that world happening, Pam. And we do whatever we can with several organizations to make this happen. This vision of yours, and looking at how can we together with our collective wisdom contribute to that change is a world that we see as you have just shared it with us. So thank you for that, Pam. And we're going to the next speaker, and that's already the last speaker in this round. So we're going to Ifat share. Here and well, it's also a little bit talking about the pink elephant in the room, and I do believe that we do need to talk about it. The digital future that leaves no one behind. Of course, we're going to talk about AI as well on a day like this. So, Ifat, globally recognized as an AI education strategist, digital inclusion advocate. She's an award-winning social innovator, the founder of Code to Change, who has educated 4,500 women and impacted the lives of 30,000 women, families, etc. Advisor to the UN and the European Parliament, and she's here to share a bold vision for an AI-powered future that is inclusive, sustainable, and leaves no one behind. So, Ifat, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ingen, first of all, for giving me the opportunity to speak to your community. It is indeed an honor to hear all the stories that I've been hearing throughout the session. Very different perspectives, of course, but yet so touching and so genuine, and full of wisdom, really. I would love to well, also commend you, Ingen, for pulling this together, because yes, we all know how hard it is to keep this work going. So thank you for that. So my name is Ifat. grew up internationally, so when somebody would ask me where you're from, and I know people get curious, that's how we human beings are. Um, it's hard for me to explain while I am from Pakistani descent, Pakistani Punjabi descent from my parents, because I grew up in Libya and Malta, so different continents. If you ask me where is home, it's really so relative, right? I've been living in Amsterdam, Netherlands since 2011. Built my work here after leaving Pakistan. And it's just bizarre that I relate to so many different cultures, and then of course beautiful at the same time. I've started my work when I was just, by the way, I'm turning 45 this November, and I'm very happy about it. Every year that I celebrate my birthday, I'm just so grateful that we get to live the life that we have, and that we get to grow old. I started my work when I was just starting my university, because my parents decided to retire in Pakistan. And as I was starting my university there, I saw the stark difference between the opportunities and privilege I myself had and the other girls around me, and the opportunities that they could never imagine having. That triggered, of course, me enormously. And I channeled it in a way that it would be valuable both for me, to go through that, conflict, internal conflict of how come I'm allowed to go to university, and this young girl, who is my age, so beautiful, so full of, life, so bright, never got the opportunity to go past, to school past the primary school. That led to me setting up my organization, my first organization in Pakistan. And I focused on skills. So while it was difficult for me to send them to school, I had to find out a way to work within the cultural norms that we had, because I feel it's also important to a lot of extent to have some respect, for the culture itself that carried us for this long, and continues to carry us, gives us our identity and our sense of worth. I found a way to work around, those social cultural norms, and I set up, with the help of my father, who was my first sponsor. I set up the first female community center for women in my region. Oh, in a building that my dad allowed me to use. And he thought, okay, she's conflicted, she needs to do this, so maybe she'll do this for some time, and she'll be okay. Then it's a phase, probably. No, 20 years in, I'm still doing that same work, and I'm very happy about it and grateful that he gave me that chance to explore that. My first project focused on building the skills within the environment that the girls and those young women and older women lived in. Of course, my initial goal, was to invite the younger ones who were my age to come and learn skills, to sit together, to share experiences. But we noticed that other women, who were not the exact age group, also wanted the same opportunity, because there was nothing like that in the region before. Nobody had ever given them the opportunity to say, okay, so what would you like to learn? What do you like to do? So we opened the doors to everyone. If we had the space, they could just come and learn, and we had a dedicated teacher who would teach them different skills, so for different tracks, which then upgraded to, as circumstances happened. It was appreciated. Yes, we had some questions like, okay, why you're doing it, but mostly we were appreciated for the efforts that we were doing. And I managed to upgrade it to a community technology center for women because that's also because of digitalization, that is where it was going. I realized that if literacy was holding these women back, now that as we are moving into the digital era where internet and online opportunities are taking over, what is going to happen to these women or millions of women around the world like them, because the more the technology advances, the more skills gap widens, and the more behind we're going to be left. So I used technology as a tool to fast track their economic empowerment, and as Ingen mentioned, so far we've trained more than well over 4,500 women, both in Pakistan and in Europe. And at the same time, yes, we've impacted more than 30,000 lives with our programs. And that's a very conservative estimate that we have. It's the actual number is much, much more. And why is it important? Why do I advocate for the digital skills slash AI skills? It As the internet became, it took over our lives, our phones kind of took over our lives. It became very obvious how the job market was shifting and changing. And if you want to stay relevant as someone who wants to, look for a job, start a business, what is the what is the first thing you need? You need the know-how. You need that access to knowledge. You need that, okay, if I want to start this, where do I go? Where do I start? And if nobody is there to guide you, either you go the long way and to spend a few years, months to make sure that or you find someone who's been through the process or who can guide you through it. And this is what we've been for a lot of women. They want to start a career. We say, okay, what do you like to do? What is your current skill set and where would you like to go from here? And this has impacted so many lives. I get overwhelmed. And now that we are moving towards AI era and it's such a huge buzz and there is so much fear and panic about it, here's what I tell to all our community members and to our audiences. Listen, we survived when they told us the internet is going to take over, the robots are going to take our jobs. It didn't. We survived when they told us, okay, it's all social media now. So if you are at social media, that's the only way your business is going to survive. We survived that. AI is a tool, and that's all it is. It's a powerful tool to get you to the goal that you want to do. I don't confine to the idea that it can take over the human creativity or the human mind. Yes, it's trying. A lot of people are doing some really creative things with it. But at the same time, we are still as human beings, we are still the creators or the creatives. And at the end of the day, a lot of companies, by the way, they started firing and downsizing so many people. And yesterday it was in the news, or probably before as well, that Australian government had to fire one of those 4C consulting firms who used AI in inadequately to get them a big report, and never fact checked it. So they still, at the end of the day, needed humans to fact check it and to actually give them the results, proper results that would then decide on people's lives, because these reports, these policies, they have real impact on people's lives. So every now and then we get that stark reminder that at the end of the day, it's us human beings who need to understand their power, the power they hold, and use all these emerging technologies and tools, whether it's AI or other tools, as a way to enhance themselves and not as these technologies taking over our lives. I hope I'm not gone over time, but
Yes, you did.
sorry about that. I will close here, and I would love to keep talking to you either in breakout rooms or offline. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ifat. And actually, I'm talking with Ifat to design to create a program, a masterclass for Wise Move Society to see how we can uplift the skills or at least the knowledge of the older generation to a level that we feel that that is really needed right now. So thank you, Ifat.